Hey, you!
Me?
Yeah, you. Do you want to become top 5 player in Marvel Rivals? Well, you found the right place. Because today, I'm going to be teaching you guys game sense in Marvel Rivals. Now, game sense is a term that's typically thrown out by a lot of people when playing Rivals. So what does it mean? Game sense is simply the awareness that you have of everything relating to the game. Not just a regular understanding of how the game works, but a deeper understanding of exactly what is going on, where, when it's going to happen, and why. What separates a good player from an outstanding player is their game sense, and their ability to understand everything that's going on in the field like Isagi Yoichi. When speaking about ranked, of course your mechanical skill plays a large part in it, but once you reach a certain rank like Eternity, game sense is really what matters above all else, and it can help you climb the ranks much easier if you're in lower ranks. So what is this supernatural mythical ability that all of these high rank level players seem to possess? Well, simply put, it's just your experience allowing you to process all of the variables that are happening in real time. When speaking of game sense, it's different depending on which type of game you're talking about. For example, Apex Legends, a battle royale game, has a completely different game sense than something like a hero shooter, Marvel Rivals, or Overwatch. They have mostly similar game senses because their game is the same genre. So how exactly do I teach something that is based on your own experience? Well, it's not exactly like I can transfer my knowledge over to you guys through some voodoo brain tech procedure, but what I can do is give a general perspective of what you should be thinking about during each stage of the game and how to utilize that knowledge to its maximum potential. This applies to everything relating to changing the flow of the game, guaranteeing when other people will ult, keeping track of micro and macro management of your ults, your whole team's ults for good cycles before and after fights are over. Doing this is just the most basic level of game sense, when it really gets much deeper than this, considering things like cooldowns, space management, positioning depending on your role, etc. All of these things are exemplified by communication. This is one of the most important things when it comes to having good game sense. So without further ado, let's get into how to make your game sense perfect in Marvel Rivals. Cooldowns are a small yet really important portion of what actually makes up your game sense. Baiting specific cooldowns of enemy teams, depending on which character you are playing, is one of the most important things in this game. For example, let's say I'm playing Magic and I want to dive the enemy's backline, but they are permanently peeled for by an Emma and they have a Loki. In this scenario, it's good to ask your teammates to calm when Emma uses her diamond or when Loki uses his green, or note that out for yourself by forcing it out and backing out, because both of these abilities have an extraordinarily long cooldown, and in this time frame, it gives you a free entry to kill their whole backline. Once the backline healers are dead, the fight is essentially over and your team just collapses on the entire rest of the team. Let's do another example. Let's say I'm playing Luna Snow, or my healer is playing Luna Snow, and I notice that the enemy Doctor Strange still has not ulted, even though practically the whole game has been going by without it. So he's probably waiting for it in order to initiate the next fight. I give the calm to Luna or to a Bucky on my team or someone with the CC to save Hook or Freeze for the Strange ult. Doing this allows you to have a massive advantage over the enemy team because you know exactly what their next move is, and it always makes the games way easier to predict. Like, for myself, as an example, I know that Cloak and Dagger is going to ult, so when I'm playing Magic, I try and save my ult for the Cloak ult because I know I'm skilled enough to one-shot her every time, especially if we don't have a mag to kill her in ult, or if they don't have one to bubble her ult. It's just free pickings, and then we win fights based off of that pick. But that's really all there is to the basics of cooldown management, so let's move on to the next part of game sense. Now, it's easy for anyone to say, oh, I know how to manage my ultimate, but there's a much deeper level of how you should be using all of the ultimates on your team. As everybody knows, ultimates are the strongest thing in this entire game. Specifically, healer ultimates are very overtuned, with most of them being a guaranteed fight win or stall unless shut down by something else or another ult. But what does it mean to actually cycle your ultimate? Well, each character's ultimate charges at a different rate, and some of them them are much easier to charge than others depending on the type of character. Let's go through a hypothetical. Let's say I'm playing Bucky and I just hooked a Groot out of the front line and uppercutted him into my backline. This is early in the game, but due to the way Bucky works, I will get loads of ult charge because of this kill, and so will my team. So Groot dies, we take space in the front line, using that space and dominate the fight. Now, what's the key difference between my team and the enemy team after that fight is over? It's ult charge. Every single person who killed that Groot on my team got a portion of the ult charge that his HP was relevant to, and do you know who didn't get the ult charge? The enemy team's healers. So me being Bucky will have my ultimate before the next enemy healer's ult, which guarantees another fight win and snowballs it to immediately win the next fight and buy more time if I'm attacking, defending, domination, whatever the map is. That's one of the most basic things about ult cycling. But if we're to dive a bit deeper, it also plays a massive part into tracking your own teammate's ultimate and using that to match the enemy team's ults for the next fight. Let's say your ult is at 50% as Luna Snow, and you know the enemy team's healer has ults, so you ask your DPS to target the support to force out the ultimate early, so she has to use it in an unoptimal position. As the fight drags on, your ultimate will come back, and you can use it to clean up the fight and guarantee the win on point. Ult cycling also is extremely important to consider when looking at all of your teammates' ults after losing a fight, realizing you can use them to win the next fight. There's two sides to this coin. On one side, you use all of your ults to win the fight and have zero ultimates for the next one and get completely stomped. Or the enemy team uses all of their ults, so you, who's been tracking all of the ultimates, know that they are at a major disadvantage because remember, knowledge is king in this game. So you know that all you have to do is ult to win the next fight. Another important part of ult cycling is mirror ults, where you know if the enemy support just ulted or the enemy DPS just ulted, so you can either match the ult as a support or a DPS, or wait till the ult runs out and put yourself in a better situation than the enemy team. Specific characters have the defensive type ults, like Mag can use their ult to shut those down, so saving them is super important for those mirror matchup support ults. But that's about it for ult cycling, so let's go to the next part of game sense. Yo, what's up guys? We're back. Yay, hello, it's me again. Please like and sub, please! But yeah, I'm on day 3 of making this video after making that tank video for weeks. Kill me! So we're gonna do more guides in the future. I don't really know which character I'm gonna do next, but I think I have a good idea. Probably gonna do Namor eventually. I don't know. Anyway, like 98% of you guys aren't subs, so, you know, you could do that. That would be pretty cool. You know, you should do that. Please don't flop. Please don't flop. Please don't flop. Please don't flop. Alright, back to the video. Staggers play an extremely important part in the core mechanics of Marvel Rivals. When getting a stagger, it's typically after a fight is over and you've already won that fight. It's integral to the game's flow that when losing a team fight, you die at the same time unless you can keep yourself alive. The reasoning behind this is if you die after everyone else, then your death will delay future full-fledged team fights in the worst way possible, because you lose your own time and domination of whatever objective it may be. A small portion of your game sense should be funneled into knowing when the fight is over and when to try and not give up on a fight. Knowing when to kill yourself so you don't have to delay the next fight with your team or run away is equally as important of the two things I just listed, because if you end up trying to live, you'll stall the fight even longer in a horrible fashion. The same thing goes for when you are on the winning side of a team fight. If you secure a pick or don't kill the whole enemy team, it's important to push up to make sure you get those stagger picks, because they allow your team to occupy the objective as long as possible and maintain priority. When it comes to occupying an objective, nothing is more important than space. Space is another key aspect of game sense. When you occupy those corners, it's important to make sure the other team cannot recontest those spots. Pushing up specifically as a tank is more important than anything else. Let's go through an example. If I'm playing on a domination map where there's 2 choke points and I'm playing Magneto into a Squirrel Girl or a Moon Knight or Spam or anything, it's important that I move forward first far onto the point with my shield up so that my DPS can play around me without the spam. It would be so much harder for my DPS to get free picks or to flank to push up on main without me taking that space. This also goes even more into stagger picks after a fight is over, combining into taking space after those staggers to get even more staggers is super important because it allows you to force out ults to maybe make them have to recontest when they shouldn't be, or by holding that choke for your healers slash DPS to get value by spamming down it. However, this is not just limited to tanks. DPS can also take space through playing around corners and killing the backline, which can open up the entire front line for your team to take over that position and occupy the space. So let's move on to the next part of game sense. Peeling is applicable to all roles, but more so tanks than anything else. When your healers or backline is permanently getting dove, having 1 or 2 people focus and kill the diver is more important than any space that you may take as a tank. Because when you go in, if your healers aren't there to support you, you just end up getting caught out in the open and dead most of the time. So keeping awareness of your backline, easily doable with comms by the way, is extremely important to your overall game sense. This also goes for when you're playing support. Please focus on healing your other support and keeping them alive, because they are integral to keeping not only you, but your whole team alive. Just because you're a healer does not mean you should expect to not get dove and not have any action, because healers are going to be the easiest thing to kill for the enemy divers. So you two healers should always look out for each other, and your kits are very strong, so I promise you won't die most of the time. It's an important part of Marvel Rivals to have really good game sense, especially if you're playing healer, because that's how you keep yourself alive the most of the time. DPS can also peel, but not really as much. It's better to play more peel type characters if your team is getting dove, like, you know, Bucky or Namor, but that doesn't really tie too much into game sense. That's just more of general character selection. Another small thing is target prioritization, and this one is kind of a basic one, but I do believe it also ties into your game sense a tiny bit. When focusing on a specific target, it's important not to shoot at anyone else but that target. And I know this may seem simple, but I promise you, nobody does this. Typically, this is a healer, but it can also be a tank or a DPS. Please reiterate this to your team, and you will kill them 10 times faster. But yeah, that's about all the tips I have for your game sense. If you want anything specific like a positioning guide, placement, let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. These videos take forever, and if you liked the video, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye!